Hello, my beautiful doves. Quick life update. I've moved into a new house. So I have moved to Los Angeles. If you've been keeping up with my moving journey, I've talked about needing more access to nature and a slower lifestyle, which is something I couldn't really achieve in New York City. And to be fair, my partner and I considered a bunch of other places. Like we looked at San Francisco, Portland, even Boise. We had a whole Excel spreadsheet, but we decided on LA because we both have a lot of friends here. Also, most of my family lives in Orange County. It's just like nice to move somewhere where you already have a community. Plus, I feel like with where I'm at in my career right now, I still want to be in a city that has a robust arts and entertainment scene. And also the weather's great. Not to sound stereotypical. Yes, like any city, LA has its upsides and downsides. For example, I have never seen so much plastic surgery and filler in my life until I moved here. Actually, when I was visiting LA last year, I went to an award season party. And at the party, I was actually solicited by a plastic surgeon. Like he showed up with a group of people who recognized the friend I was with. And so, it was like a situation where it's just me and this guy being kind of on the outskirts of this reunion happening in front of us. And I did what any normal person does and started talking to him. I was like, how do you know these people? And he was like, oh, I did their faces. And I was clearly confused because this guy looked like he was in his early 30s. And I just have this assumption that all plastic surgeons are like 50 plus years old for some reason. But hey, maybe he was actually 50 and he discovered some elixir of youth in his research or something. Anyway, he kept going on about how he was a surgeon and that I should stop by his clinic sometime. I'm not usually a confrontational person around strangers, but I was getting kind of irked and I just kind of asked him point blank, like, do you think I need work or something? And he was flustered for a second because, it was clear he wasn't trying to offend me, but there's not really a way to promote plastic surgery without offending someone. Anyway, he recovered and he goes, well, everyone needs a spa day.
Finish your salad and I'll treat you to a little mani-pedi Botox.
And I just left at that point. Good to meet you. See you never again. You might be wondering, oh, wait, Mina, why did you still decide to move here? Because the weather is great. I was obviously bothered by such a brazen sales pitch from a plastic surgeon who isn't even board certified, might I add. Yes, I looked that up. Please look that up if you're ever looking for a doctor. I mostly blame these parasitic doctors and larger corporations for the messed up beauty standards that we have today. But I will say that being in LA has raised many questions for me on how I feel about other people getting cosmetic surgery. Like many people, I think my perception has changed about dermal filler work, for instance. To give context, in 2015, when Kylie Jenner announced she got lip fillers, internet searches for the term increased by 3,233%. Fast forward to January 2024, during Paris Couture Week, people were mocking Kylie online for what they deemed as bad filler work. When I was seeing this, I was like, oh, maybe the beauty standard is shifting away from these somewhat invasive cosmetic procedures. But then in December 2024, Lindsay Lohan was praised for having a new face, which to me looked, unnaturally enhanced. I mean, I thought Lindsay looked good, but that's just not a face you get from Pilates.
Facercise is a series of 14 synergistic facial exercises, which will give you control over the aging process. Pump. Pump. Pump.
They'll let the record show that Lindsay has not admitted to having any kind of plastic surgery. So I'm not saying that she did or did not get anything. Some people hypothesize that Lindsay got some kind of facelift, like plastic surgeon Dr. Anil Shah, who told Slate that it's possible Lindsay got a baby facelift or an endoscopic facelift, which is essentially a traditional facelift with smaller incisions. I think it's worth noting that a lot of people don't like the Kardashians, but they do like Lindsay Lohan. And actually, a lot of people were rooting for Lindsay to have a Hollywood comeback in the past year when she started acting again. So we might be seeing her with a bit of a halo effect right now. But then here's another case. If you look at Demi Moore
appeared in Paris Fashion Week with what looks like a different face.
Demi Moore was made fun of online in 2021 for what people speculated as botched buccal fat removal. Yet, fast forward to 2024, during her press tour for The Substance, people were now singing praises about her speculated new facelift. Lindsay and Demi aren't the only ones facing facelift speculations. Other celebrities recently, like Christina Aguilera, Jennifer Lawrence, and Emma Stone, have all been name dropped when it comes to this hot Hollywood procedure. In a positive way, might I add.
I want whatever the fuck Christina Aguilera's on, because that bitch has the Benjamin Button effect going on. She is getting hotter with age.
As I've been reading into all this, I've started to wonder whether endoscopic facelifts actually look better than fillers, or if this is just a result of a new beauty standard coming in, and really what it means to judge plastic surgery results as a whole. I also think it's interesting how these new facelifts have been hush-hush. Meanwhile, in the recent past, so many celebrities were open about fillers, Botox, and skincare regimens. So we'll discuss that too, and why I think there's like a new shroud of secrecy.
Do you know what I don't get is lip fillers.
Moving to a new place, especially at the beginning of the year when I'm trying to already like reconfigure my life, is a lot, to say the least. So that's why this year I'm partnering with Notion to help my reset go a little bit more smoothly. Notion is an easy to use productivity and note-taking platform. I've been using Notion to track my reading lists and to save online shopping links for a later review. But today I want to show you my 2025 goal page. Also, look at my little Notion face. It's a new feature where you can customize a portrait to look like you. I added it to personalize my page a bit more. I built this template myself, but there's a bunch of templates in the Notion marketplace as well to help you get started. So you can see the list of goals I have here in this table and the target quarter I'd like to accomplish them by. I have a lot for quarter one, which might be wishful thinking, but we're going full steam ahead this year. So underneath that, I have this table for in-progress goals and the tasks associated. So for instance, one of my in-progress goals is to drive a car confidently. I broke this goal down into subtasks: learn how to parallel park, drive locally by myself, and then drive on the highway by myself. I already have a license, but after living in a dense city with good public transit for all my adult life, I definitely needed to refresh my driving skills. Otherwise, get a license would also be on here. As you can see, I've checked off 2 of the boxes, so the progress bar shows I'm 2/3 of the way there. The other page I made for my New Year's reset is a vision board. The common thing to do when making a vision board is to collage images that are very specific to your goals. So if you want to take tennis lessons, you might put a photo of like a tennis racket or something. This year, I decided to make a vibes-based inspirational vision board. I've been pretty consistent every year with how I want my material conditions to look, but I have a habit of losing steam because of imposter syndrome, anxiety, what have you. So this year's vision board is focused on affirmations and helping me stay motivated to complete my goals, and also just to, in general, be a more healed person. So yeah, these are my layouts for 2025. You can get started on Notion for free and create your own portrait at my custom link below. In 2019, Gia Tolentino coined the term Instagram face. She describes Instagram face as a young face, of course, with poreless skin and plump high cheekbones. It has cat-like eyes and long cartoonish lashes. It has a small, neat nose and full, lush lips. The face is distinctly white, but ambiguously ethnic. It suggests a National Geographic composite illustrating what Americans will look like in 2050 if every American of the future were to be a direct descendant of Kim Kardashian West, Bella Hadid, Emily Ratajkowski, and Kendall Jenner, who looks exactly like Emily Ratajkowski. The appeal of Instagram face was that it played right into the sexy baby beauty trope, as Taylor Swift called it in her 2022 song Anti-Hero. Sexy baby refers to looking young while still being sexually available.
And the whole sexy baby thing isn't an act. I'm a very sexy baby.
The way these procedures work is this. Botox temporarily relaxes muscles by blocking nerve signals, which helps reduce wrinkles and treats various medical conditions. Dermal fillers are injectable substances that are used to restore volume, smooth lines, and enhance facial contours. The most common type of dermal filler is hyaluronic acid filler, which is also a naturally occurring substance in the body. Fillers can end up giving a suppleness to the skin, which, creates that fresh, youthful glow. And when injected in the cheeks and the lips, it can also mimic certain ethnic features. And as we all know, non-white ethnicities tend to be more over-sexualized. While fillers and Botox are technically medical procedures, an injector does not actually need to have medical training to perform them, which means that they're pretty accessible as well as dangerous. For many places, you can just walk in without a consultation and get injected all during your 30-minute lunch break. Aesthetic consultant Cindy Jackson explains the reality of not going to a doctor. You can buy fillers on e-commerce site Alibaba. People can set themselves up as an injector without having any medical training, without using the name brand products, and you don't know what's being injected. I go to medical conferences and watch webinars and hear about the complications from things that are allegedly safe. It's frightening. I have personally never gotten filler, but I did get Master Botox over a year ago. Master Botox is typically used to treat TMJ and teeth grinding. It's injected around here. But in recent years, I've noticed a lot of influencers online touting about how it gives them a more snatched jawline. I am a teeth grinder, and honestly, the best course of action, according to my dentist, is just to get a night guard. But I was just, so convinced that I didn't have the fortitude to wear a night guard every night. I mean, I gave up on my retainer a long time ago, and the overbite is low-key coming back. Let's ignore that. So I decided to try out Master Botox. I'm also not gonna lie, this was absolutely more of an aesthetic decision than a medical decision. I just felt like I needed a medical excuse to try out a cosmetic procedure because deep down, I did really feel ashamed about wanting them. Because for a good number of years, I was doing really good, deconditioning my body dysmorphia. To give some context, I grew up in a really homogeneously white suburb, which definitely messed me up psychologically, existentially, on a lot of levels. Like, I keep in contact with very few people from my high school days. It was just not a good place for me. And then I went to university in Australia, where the majority of my friends were these rich Chinese girls who all had double eyelid surgery, tiny little faces, and wore size 0 clothing. And that brought in a new range of issues. Like, on top of all that, my friends would also Facetune themselves into oblivion, and then also Facetune me into oblivion in photos of us together. And I was a K-pop fan in high school, so I was already aware of how oppressive Asian standards of beauty can be, but my friends definitely made it worse. I don't blame anyone because we're all dealing with our own shit, right? But when I moved to New York, I made a lot of efforts to rebuild my self-image. So this whole Master Botox fiasco, if I thought about it too much, it felt like I was losing the battle against social beauty standards that I was resisting for so long. So I suppressed that shame under the concept of medical. Needless to say, I got injected, and at the time, no one really noticed because it was very slow to take effect. My mom was even like, I really don't see a difference. I don't know why you spent all that money. But because I look at my face every day, I noticed. And at first, I felt really good about my new jaw. But around month 4, I started to feel dysmorphic again. When I looked in the mirror, to me, the Master Botox ended up aging me like 10 years because it made my face way more gaunt. And there was this underlying worse feeling that I had where I was like, I literally did this to myself. I wasn't born like this. I chose to make myself look worse. I paid to make myself look worse. What the hell? So that was the end of that. And I felt very liberated when the Botox wore out and my face filled out again. I actually, I look in the mirror now and my jawline doesn't even bother me anymore because I'm now aware of what I would look like with a different jawline. And that look was frankly crazy, or at least to me it was. What I have going on right now just makes way more sense for my natural features and proportions. And, I'm really grateful in the end that this was my experience and that I was able to hold on to my aesthetic judgment, because a lot of people end up actually, loving the way filler looks and getting more and more of it done until their faces become overfilled or until they overdepend on it to fix all their aesthetic insecurities and thus inject it when it doesn't even make sense or when it's not safe.
I was hoping to actually go bigger lip-wise. I know it's already incredibly huge right now.
You'll get a better result if you hold off for just a little bit.
Can I at least do some Botox while I'm here?
We can treat Botox today.
There's also a lot of misinformation about injectables, which is so scary. So for me, I was told that Master Botox lasts for 6 months, but I noticed that my face hadn't, gone back to normal until a full year later. Also, I still sometimes have this jaw clicking in my left jaw that is, I guess it's one jaw, the left side of my jaw. That was worse than before I even got the Botox, which sucks. And it would have been great if anyone could have told me that this was a possible side effect. For filler, when I was doing research for this video, I found out there's a common belief that filler will go away in 6 months and should be re-injected. But apparently this belief is actually wrong, and filler can stay in your face for years. Again, I've never had filler, and I'm not gonna lie, I feel kind of validated by the concept of people dissolving their filler, which has become more and more of a phenomenon. And the reason I feel validated is because I'm like, oh, well, thank goodness I didn't spend money on that, because it was just a trend at the end of the day, which is so dystopian. But as an example, despite literally popularizing them in the first place, Kylie Jenner admitted she was getting rid of some of her filler in an episode of The Kardashians that came out in 2023.
I went on a journey the last year dissolving like half my lip filler.
The same year, Blac Chyna went on Instagram to say she was dissolving filler from her cheeks, jaw, and lips, as well as getting surgery to have her butt and breasts reduced from silicone shots.
I'm tired of the look, and it's just not flattering. It's just not what I look like. It like totally changed my face. Well, I'll be looking like Jigsaw.
And more examples, a number of former Love Island contestants have also dissolved their filler. One of the show stars, Molly May Hague, talked about her decision on the Diary of a CEO podcast, saying,
by the age of 21, I didn't look like the same person. I literally looked like a different person. It was when I look back at pictures now, I'm terrified of myself. I'm like, who was that girl? There was this one pivotal moment where I'd gone and I'd got loads of filler, and I posted a YouTube video, and I hadn't let the filler sort of settle, and it was really swollen, and a picture from a screenshot from that video, it trended on Twitter for weeks. It was horrendous. It was utterly horrendous. It was like, you can insert the picture, we'll send it to you. My face was literally like, it was just awful. And that was a moment for me as well, where I was like, I think things need to change.
And it's not just like a couple noteworthy cases. There's real statistics too. The American Academy of Facial Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, AAFPRS, their 2022 trend report showed that while filler was still one of the 3 most common minimally invasive procedures, its popularity was decreasing. Survey respondents reported doing 14% fewer filler injections in 2022 than they did in 2021. After hearing these celebrity accounts and looking through a number of come with me to get my filler dissolved TikTok videos,
get ready with me to go get my lip filler dissolved.
It seems the reason a lot of people are dissolving it is because, like me, they've realized that their faces are actually looking worse post-procedure.
This is my completely botched cheeks that look ridiculous.
And I think the results of all these publicized accounts of dissolving filler is that we have, thankfully, I guess, gone over the peak of filler phase. And it's caused a chain reaction, right? Like, even if your filler still looks fine, seeing all these videos of other girls going back to their natural faces might make you want to as well. Or you might be growing paranoid that you're giving off the same overfilled pillow face that celebrities like Madonna were made fun of for having. Dr. Paul Charlson of Skinfluencer London told Dazed, there have been industry surveys done that show that people seeking aesthetic treatments are anxious about being judged for having them. The now entrenched trend that is prevalent amongst younger patients, those in their 20s for instance, for the overdone look such as bigger lips, bigger cheeks, that have been led in part by reality TV stars and which you see all over Instagram, has become almost a caricature look. A major issue with dissolving filler, though, is that it's not always easy, which is insane because one of the reasons why filler took off in the first place was because it was marketed as temporary. Right now, the most common way to dissolve filler is through injecting hyaluronidase, which is an enzyme that breaks down hyaluronic acid. This only works if the filler you injected is hyaluronic acid filler. However, this procedure isn't always successful. People can have allergic reactions to hyaluronidase, and plastic surgeon Dr. Naveen Somia has argued the possibility that hyaluronidase can actually target naturally occurring hyaluronic acid in the face. Scary. There's numerous support communities online for people dealing with complications, including a Facebook group called Botched Fillers and Hyaluronidase Damage Support Group. Felicity Martin interviewed a member of the group for Dazed, a 32-year-old woman named Taylor. For Taylor, she was just trying to correct some lumpy lip filler. She was told she should dissolve and refill it, which she did. She followed that advice. However, after the refill, she noticed a nodule had formed on her lip. Her injector claimed that they could just dissolve again and recorrect. Why they couldn't just do it right the first time, who knows? Maybe it's because you don't need to get medical training and you can just order stuff from Alibaba. However, after dissolving the second time, Taylor felt immediate tingling all around her cheek and chin. 2 days later, she explained that she woke up with extreme burning and very clear, visible dents in her chin where she had experienced the pain. She said, "It was a horror film to wake up every morning and feel extreme burning and not know what I'm going to see in the mirror." When Taylor went back to the clinic to explain what happened, she was gaslit by the practitioners. They told her she had body dysmorphia and was just overreacting, even though she literally had photo evidence of what was going on. And also, she was feeling pain. On a less severe scale, Love Island star Faye Winter went on This Morning to talk about her own complications with dissolving filler, in that she couldn't actually fully dissolve all of it.
So I had them dissolved, and obviously with that, I'd lost full elasticity in my lips. So I had very wrinkly lips. I then had to go and have 0.5 put back in, which is what I've got now.
But regardless of how smooth or lumpy the process is, it's expensive. Molly May was reported to have undergone 5,800 pounds worth of procedures to have her filler dissolved. I mean, it's just all really insane, the cost of beauty. Not only do you spend hundreds of dollars getting filler in the first place, you now have to spend hundreds of dollars dissolving it once the beauty standard changes again, or once more research comes out and you realize that these estheticians don't know what the fuck they're doing.
So, you thinking about getting a facelift?
I've talked to so many friends about this filler decline, and a lot of my cosmetic procedure phobic friends are wishfully hoping that as a result, the pendulum will swing back to natural beauty. I'm not so sure about all that, unfortunately, but I think there's already a trend towards a face and body that doesn't look obviously enhanced. Keyword is obvious. So, for example, a thin body might look more natural than a body with a dramatic BBL and breast enhancements, but for many people, it's still a manufactured look thanks to liposuctions, cool sculpting, and semaglutide injections like Ozempic.
Welcome to the 82nd Golden Globes, Ozempic's biggest night.
What I find interesting about Ozempic, other than the fact that it was a drug designed for diabetic people that is now being misused, is how it engages with cosmetic procedures. One of the drug's lesser ideal side effects is Ozempic face, which is a sagging, hollow look that can appear in faces of patients who take the drug. One of the recommendations for fixing Ozempic face is actually to get a facelift. Dr. Sherard A. Tatum, president of the AAFPRS, said in a 2024 press release that facelifts soared in popularity last year due to the Ozempic effect. He said, "At some point in the aging process and with a certain degree of laxity and sagging, you will get diminishing returns on your non-invasive procedures. At this point, it's best to opt for a facelift or partial facelift to get the desired effect." According to the accompanying stats, on average, AFPRS members performed 48 facelifts or partial facelifts in 2023, demonstrating a 60% increase since 2017. The survey also noted facelift patients are getting younger. Beforehand, the recommendation was to wait until you were 50 to get a facelift, but the survey found a directional increase among patients ages 35 to 55. I've also come across some videos on TikTok of people who got facelifts in their 20s, which, please do not do that. I have seen plastic surgeons talking about how there's a cap to how many facelifts you can get in your life because, you're losing skin tissue every time you do it. So I do worry about girls getting it done young because how are they going to feel later in life when they actually start aging? Also, I feel really blessed I didn't do much beauty maintenance in my 20s, and I advocate for that if you are also in your 20s, early 20s especially. That decision for me mostly came down to not having money and not being aware of what procedures existed. But I'm really glad, all I really did was put on makeup and dye my hair crazy colors. I wasn't getting fillers, facial sculpting, doing 12-step skincare routines, or even going to nail salon appointments. And the amount of free time I had was great. At the time, in my head, I thought I would probably start doing treatments when I got older. And so I wanted the most time possible to experience life without worrying about aging and beauty routines. And it makes me sad to read about, tweens buying anti-aging products because they've basically set themselves on a path of caring about aging for the rest of their life.
Here's some things that I do to slow down the aging process as a 14-year-old.
And it just shortens their childhood. Another reason why facelifts have become more popular is that the technology has improved quite a lot since they were first invented. I mean, facelifts have been around since forever. It's speculated that Dr. Eugene Hollander was the first surgeon to perform a facelift all the way back in 1901. And then major plastic surgery innovations would come about several years later during World War I. So during the war, an estimated 280,000 men returned from battle with facial deformities. They were referred to as les gueules cassées, or broken faces in France. Often these men were socially isolated. As Lindsey Fitzharris writes in her book, The Facemaker, A Visionary Surgeon's Battle to Mend the Disfigured Soldiers of World War I, unlike amputees, men whose facial features were disfigured were not necessarily celebrated as heroes. Whereas a missing leg might elicit sympathy and respect, a damaged face often caused feelings of revulsion and disgust. Unfortunately, for centuries, facial irregularities were interpreted as outward signs of moral degeneracy, especially as they were often associated with diseases like leprosy and syphilis, or with corporal punishment. Dr. Harold Gillies is credited with inventing revolutionary techniques to treat facial injuries during World War I. He also recognized his patients' need for community, and he campaigned for specialized hospitals where men with facial wounds could be treated. These hospitals served as social spaces that offered recreation, access to art, music, and drama, and resources to gain employment skills like woodworking. With these new technological advancements, though, it's unsurprising that they would then be co-opted by the beauty industry to prey on women's insecurities. As pioneering surgeon Max Thorick reflected in his 1943 autobiography, if soldiers whose faces had been torn away by bursting shell on the battlefield could come back into an almost normal life with new faces created by the wizardry of the new science of plastic surgery, why couldn't women whose faces had been ravaged by nothing more explosive than the hand of the years find again the firm, clear contours of youth?
The science which mended the shattered faces of our war wounded turns to the gentler task of restoring tranquility to the face and mind of womanhood.
When it comes to facelifts, there's been varying success over the years, especially in the early days. Silent film actress Mary Pickford's career abruptly ended after a botched early facelift that left her unable to smile. Hedy Lamarr reportedly got a facelift in the 1960s as part of a series of cosmetic procedures that she would later regret, and that would make her become reclusive in old age. Plastic surgeon Dr. Mike Nyack explains, what makes old surgery look weird is that it's incongruent. Different layers aren't treated in continuity with each other. The face is built in layers, with the facial skeleton serving as the box spring and layered soft tissues of the face analogous to the mattress and mattress pad. The skin is the outermost thin sheet. In the old days, facelifts would pull on the thin sheet only, while the mattress and mattress pad would loosen over time. Eventually, the entire face, or bed in this metaphor, looks wonky. But in the 21st century, when done properly, facelifts have become much more natural looking and the scars are less visible too. A technique I mentioned earlier is the endoscopic facelift, which uses smaller hairline incisions to lift the cheeks in the middle of the face. Melinda Farina, founder of Beauty Brokers Inc., a plastic surgery consultancy, said, "There aren't a lot of doctors who do them, but the ones who do are doing them well." There is, of course, a pipeline connecting fillers and facelifts. For one thing, I think fillers act as the gateway to more invasive surgical treatments because they ease you into the idea of sculpting your face. And it's possible that after years of maintenance and upkeep, a person would just look into a more permanent solution. As plastic surgeon Dr. Catherine Chang says, injectables and threads camouflage problems, while surgical procedures like facelifts fix them when done correctly. Another thing is you literally cannot have both fillers and a facelift, which is maybe why we're seeing such a dramatic shift from one to the other here. Plastic surgeon Dr. Anil Shah explained to Slate, before you get a facelift, the recommendation, which I recommend to my patients as well, depending on where their fillers are, is basically dissolve your fillers because we're changing the shape of your face. So for some people, dissolving filler is probably less about learning to appreciate their natural faces and more about prepping their faces for the next trendy procedure.
I had nose filler for 3.5 years and I'm getting a nose job in like a month, so I have to get this dissolved, so stay tuned.
I'm also not surprised that the rise of the facelift has coincided with the quiet luxury fashion movement. After all, facelifts are considered a better investment piece. As Kathleen Ho writes for Elle, fillers are fast fashion. Facelifts are designer. Fillers are a quick fix and less expensive, with shorter-term results. Facelifts are longer lasting and expensive. According to the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, the average cost of hyaluronic acid fillers is $715, while the average cost for a facelift is $11,395. But costs vary widely depending on the practitioner and also where the practice is located. For reference, the average cost of a facelift in New York City ranges between $20,000 to $80,000. On top of the expense, it's a luxury to afford the recovery time. Recovery times can range from 2 weeks to several months depending on the facelift performed and the age of the patient. Also, let's not forget, quiet luxury refers to using specific niche dress codes to indicate that you're wealthy. And rather than oversharing about fillers and Botox, like what celebrities and mostly influencers have been doing for the past several years.
Got lip filler 6 days ago, and pretty much all of the swelling and bruising has gone down.
These days, it seems like celebrities getting these new procedures are not disclosing what they are. To me, the secrecy is just a reminder of Hollywood culture and how it keeps resisting influencer culture despite relying on it for marketing and experiencing crossover time and time again. But the reason it resists is because influencer culture ultimately dismantles Hollywood's power. As Tracy Adams explains for Drain Magazine, even as it promoted the consumption of fan publications by convincing women that they too could become stars, the industry needed to do extensive gatekeeping to manage the aura of beauty. Beauty must circulate and be available to maintain consumer interest. But to retain its value, it must also remain out of reach of most women, the very highest, most prestigious form available to only a select few. Adams references anthropologist Annette Weiner's paradox of giving while keeping. According to Weiner, every culture builds up collections of possessions that represent its wealth and status. She calls these inalienable possessions. And these items are so deeply tied to the identity of their owners that they're hard to part with. Ideally, they're passed down through families or through dynasties, staying within the group across generations. Losing something like this isn't just about the object itself, it's seen as a loss of identity for the individual and by extension, the whole group they belong to. So if Hollywood loses its beauty monopoly to the masses, it loses its identity and thus its power. If beauty is too accessible, then everyone can look the same and it becomes meaningless.
What's so terrible about being beautiful? After all, isn't everybody?
Given the chance, what young girl wouldn't happily exchange a plain face for a lovely one? What girl could refuse the opportunity to be beautiful? For want of a better estimate, let's call it the year 2000. At any rate, imagine a time in the future when science has developed the means of giving everyone the face and body he dreams of. It may not happen tomorrow, but it happens now, in the Twilight Zone.
It'll be interesting to see if new class lines emerge separating the very rich from the mildly rich. I'm sure there's already a number of procedures that I've never heard of that's only available to people in the know, aka the friends of Gwyneth Paltrow.
Have a goop night, everybody.
Surgery was botched!
The pursuit of beauty, and specifically the judging of other people's procedures, reminds me a lot of The Substance, a body horror movie that came out last year that was directed by Charlee Reiff and stars Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. Actually, a lot of beauty culture today reminds me of The Substance. But yeah, so mild spoilers ahead. You can skip to the timestamp below if you want to avoid this discussion.
Warning! Spoiler alert!
In the movie, the main character, a renowned actress turned fitness guru, Elizabeth Sparkle, has recently turned 50 years old.
Happy birthday. Thank you.
And as a birthday present, the producers of her fitness show decide to fire her in order to hire someone younger.
Renewal? It's inevitable.
Soon after, Elizabeth comes across an underground drug called The Substance, which creates a younger version of herself called Sue.
I'm Sue.
However, the catch is she cannot just live in Sue's body. She has to revert back to her older body every 7 days, or else her older body will age more rapidly. Predictably, Elizabeth cannot resist living as Sue for longer than she should.
I'm Sue.
We see scenes of her trying to revert back to Elizabeth at first, but as Elizabeth, she has no life of her own. She spends her days lounging around the house, making a mess, counting down to when she can be Sue again. Eventually, she pushes past her limit as Sue, and her Elizabeth body decays more and more into grotesque proportions. The fact that she's not doing anything with her days as Elizabeth and instead preparing for Sue reminds me of the morning shed routines girls have been promoting on TikTok.
I go to bed like this so I can wake up like this. Let's run through my routine.
Morning shed refers to the removal of the skin, hair, and self-care products that people sleep in the night before. As Daniel Sine explains in an article for Glamour, think overnight collagen wrap masks, wrinkle patches, under eye masks, lip masks, mouth tape, jaw straps, hair wrap, and heatless curlers, all worn at once and overnight. I used to sleep in hair curlers, these like finger wave metal contraptions, almost every night for a while. And then part of the reason why I stopped was because I did think it was impeding my sleep. I think all of this is like a symbol of our hyper productivity culture where we feel that we need to optimize every hour of our day, even when our body is literally resting.
The uglier you go to bed, the hotter you'll wake up.
This behavior also is the result of an aesthetically driven culture over an experience driven one. It's the reason why people want to look cottagecore without actually living on a farm, or why people want to look indie sleaze even though they spend their Friday nights at home rather than at the club. If you think about it, aging is really about experiencing life. As Wendy Doniger puts it, the scars that a facelift removes are the body's memory, in a form visible to others of what the mind may have forgotten. Our scars may be the strongest signs of who we really are. Perhaps at the final reckoning, the whole body will disappear and only our scar tissue will be there to testify for us. But maybe we've become more used to the idea of not really experiencing life thanks to, lack of third places, social anxiety, or technology codependence, or what have you. I mean, I think a lot of wellness trends in general are about staying home and resting the body. Resting for what, though? I have no idea. Anyway, the substance was very polarizing, and that some people felt it was making older women into grotesque caricatures, while others thought it was a spot-on commentary on anti-aging rhetoric today. I've only seen this movie once, but my first reaction was that there were some pretty good ideas in there, but the messaging was a little unclear. Like, we're seeing a middle-aged woman destroy herself and not much else. And in the tradition of body horror movies, the substance is voyeuristically thrilling the more her body degrades and the more the gore amps up. People in my theater were laughing at her relentless and shallow pursuit of beauty. Terry Nguyen mentions in her article for Vox that fear of body modification reflects our social anxieties, namely the advancement of biological science and Western medicine, the perceived loss of agency over our bodies, algorithm-influenced beauty standards, or bodies that fall outside societal norms. I'll admit that for me, seeing an overfilled face, even if it looks good by Instagram baddie standards, it does feel like a little bit uncanny and artificial to me. Real adult humans are not wrinkleless and fully symmetrical. In a way, I can see why reconstructive surgery is typically judged less harshly because it's about restoring the face and body to something more familiar for a lot of people. Meanwhile, cosmetic surgery is distorting the face and body to something unfamiliar. Gothic scholar Xavier Aldana Reyes told Vox, "It seems like we're interested in the tipping point at which something human tips over into the unnatural or the artificial. To what extent do we lose our sense of self in the process? What constitutes us and how much of it is external?" I think facelifts are popular right now because the results are more natural looking than fillers. I mean, there are a number of people online who think Lindsay Lohan looks the way she does because she went sober and started doing Pilates. Not saying Lindsay got a facelift because I don't want to get sued, but come on, this is not the work of a good gym routine.
Pump, pump, pump. Lift and let go. Lift and let go.
You could argue that the substance is just trying to hold a mirror up to us. How we as a society laugh at women for being vain, but I also question what the point of that awareness is if there's no commentary on how we should change. I mean, the reality is that looking young and beautiful holds a lot of social currency, especially as a woman and especially in entertainment industries. It's why I've been trying to keep my judgment in check because I'm a realist. So as much as the best of us preach body positivity and as much as I think it's brave and respect-worthy to avoid beauty culture, I recognize that systems reward the beautiful. And therefore, who am I to judge someone who's just trying to make their life easier?
Women shouldn't have to hide in the shadows because they've had cosmetic surgery, which society nearly demands of them.
My problem with certain people who get cosmetic procedures is how irresponsibly they promote them or even just the way they talk about them. Some people really try to spin these procedures into feminist empowering acts when they're not. This quote from beauty critic Jessica DeFino on the Pleasure Seeking podcast really hits for me.
Yeah, I don't think you can consume subversively. I just don't think you can consume anything in a subversive way because the downstream effects of that consumption are still there. It's how the products are being made in a certain way. They're having the same impact on the environment. They're having the same impact on the workers who are making them. The factories are having the same impact on global warming. Your purchasing of them is putting money in the same pockets and upholding the same systems that are like encouraging you to buy these products. You can have your intentions. No one's taking that away from you, but to call any sort of consumption subversive when it has the same effect on the world, I just think is misguided.
But, you know, as I said, conventional beauty is rewarded and conventional ugliness is punished, especially in industries like Hollywood, where they quite literally hold a zoom lens onto every pore of your face. According to journalist Julie Solomon, on the film set of Brian De Palma's 1990 movie Bonfire of the Vanities, the movie's cinematographer, Vilmos Sigmund, complained about Melanie Griffith's appearance. She doesn't mind those lines around her eyes, those bags. One of the producers apparently also joked that they should slather her face with Preparation H to shrink her eye bags. And as actress Rosanna Arquette once said, I was super against Botox, saying I'll never do it. Then you see yourself on HD and you want to kill yourself. But the pursuit of beauty is also a double-edged sword in Hollywood with the dominance of realistic acting. It reminds me of the smartphone face discourse when people were complaining about how certain actors didn't look like they could realistically belong in a period drama because of the cosmetic work they had done. I'm wondering, though, if we'll get to a point where plastic surgery is just so ubiquitous in Hollywood and when literally all the actors in movies will just be surgically enhanced, and as a result, we won't really know any better because, you know, everyone just looks like that now. Our perception of normalcy will drift. I mean, I do think it was an interesting choice casting Demi Moore in The Substance, considering she does not look like a normal 50-year-old woman to begin with. And maybe there's a meta commentary in there about how no matter what kind of enhancements you get, you'll never actually be able to turn back the clock. But in an alternate universe, I wonder if it would have strengthened or weakened the narrative if they casted a 50-year-old woman who hasn't gotten any work done. At the same time, I think it's cool that there are more middle-aged women in Hollywood still acting when this wasn't the case even 10 years ago. But it reminds me of something else Stefano said, specifically about how there are a few factors at play for why that is.
I've been in a lot of conversations over the past couple of years about actresses in Hollywood who are over 40, over 50, and are getting all of these amazing roles. And is that because of the aesthetic labor they put in? Is that because of the cosmetic interventions they've undergone? Nicole Kidman, Halle Berry, J-Lo, Reese Witherspoon. Even 10, 20 years ago, there was this idea that once you hit like 35, 40 in Hollywood, you were done as an actress. And that just doesn't really seem to be the case anymore. And I really I don't love the idea that it's because of the cosmetic work they're getting done to look younger. Because if you look at these situations, what those specific women are doing are changing the material conditions of the industry they're in. Like, they're producing these projects, they're writing these projects, they're finding these projects that celebrate or at least feature older women and bringing them to life because of the power that they've amassed in the industry and what they're doing to change the material conditions of the industry to give older women more opportunities. I do think it's all really hot because, yeah, a lot of the older women getting opportunities are also being required to get pretty intense cosmetic work in order to be on camera or at least feel the pressure to do so. So it is kind of like complicated.
Maureen, what's going on with your face? What have you done?
I've had a few surgical procedures to enhance my natural beauty.
My main takeaway from looking at all this is that beauty trends come and go. Like, does anyone remember buccal fat removal? Buccal fat removal was all anyone could talk about for months. There were so many news articles about this procedure and so many celebrities who were speculated to have gotten it done, from Lea Michele to Miley Cyrus. Then all of a sudden, people just stopped gravitating towards the look. As Beverly Hills plastic surgeon Dr. Carl Truesdale told The Hollywood Reporter last November, I'm getting fewer requests for it now because it can accelerate the aging process and make people look gaunt. I think the scary thing about buccal fat removal in particular is that it's irreversible. And within a year, people went from loving to hating the look. But even if looking botched was not my concern, I've been thinking of how Jessica DeFino talks about cost analysis of beauty. There are aspects of beauty culture that I know I participate in, like wearing makeup, getting my hair cut professionally, wearing nice clothes, because I know the social benefit of doing all those things is worth the cost. And even though there are a lot of social benefits to getting plastic surgery, I like what DeFino writes in this Guardian column. When we prioritize looks, we give up so much. Girls as young as 3 learn to place a premium on their physical appearance, Fast Company reported earlier this year, and according to research cited in the Warwick Journal of Philosophy, can go on to value their appearance above health and education. A recent investigation from Dazed suggests some people now value aesthetics more than friendship. From this, I might conclude that beauty improves some qualities of life and degrades others. She also shared results from an anonymous survey she conducted via her newsletter. Of the over 3,200 people polled, about 60% identify as average or below average looking, of whom 74% still find their lives fulfilling, while 41% of total respondents believe their appearance has positively impacted their economic opportunities. Only 27% feel good about the amount of time and brain space they've dedicated to cosmetic pursuits. I think my personal relationship to beauty is going to be a relationship that has to be negotiated and nurtured throughout my entire life. But I like thinking about beauty cost analysis because it forces me to think about my life more holistically. I've done a little bit of it without realizing too. Like around the time I stopped sleeping in those metal hair contraptions, I was asking myself, what is the cost of not doing my hair every night? Oh, I'll get better sleep. Okay. Getting good quality sleep is actually worth more for my quality of life than having a marginally better hairstyle every morning. Anyways, this is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your beauty journey has been like and what your relationship has been to fillers, Botox, or any other cosmetic procedures. I encourage people to not be judgmental in the comments because it's hard to know anyone's personal situation. I don't think it's a feminist choice to get work done, but I think it's a feminist choice to be compassionate. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
Wasn't that fun? Exercise your face to a more vital, youthful you. Keep pumping and have a great time.